you can kind of take a step back and pull yourself out of the weeds and slow down a bit, you can make much better decisions. You're never going to have perfect information. And you certainly don't want to get stuck in what I call analysis paralysis. It's also about lifestyle. When you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business and you're doing 80 to 100 hours a week, I always question, well, do you really need to do that? Is that really the way to do it? Can you work more efficiently and still have a little bit better life balance? And of course, when you're an entrepreneur, life balance is kind of an oxymoron, but there's ways to do it better and smarter.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Joining me today is David Crane, one of the founders of ListenRing, a 24/7 hotline to mental health therapists. His goal is to create a business that gives everyone the support they need when they need it. We're going to be talking with David about how he came up with ListenRing, how to develop a 24/7 service, and how he's impacting the world for the better 1% every day. Thank you, David, for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Cal. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's funny, as I was going through your website, kind of looking at the information beforehand, I realized that you guys had a very unique selling proposition of the 24/7 service, but it's very difficult to go into a world of advertising and promotion or business in general, where you're going up against massive conglomerates like BetterHelp. Can you talk to me about where this idea really stood out for you, how it was created, and how you approach the market to make sure that you're actually going in and grabbing that market share?
Yeah, sure. So let me just take a step back and tell you that this company was founded, ListenRing was founded by a psychiatrist by the name of Alfred Sung. And he and two of his co-workers, Mike Ricker and Jeannie Cowan, are all in the therapy world. They're social workers, they're psychiatrists, they're, professional therapists. And they work in this crisis environment. And there is a huge need in kind of the middle of the mental health care delivery continuum, where one end is the emergency room and 988, and the other end are these big providers that you're talking about, and traditional therapy. In the middle, when someone needs therapy right away, nothing really exists. You can make an appointment, you can be in therapy for a week or two or 10 or a year or whatever, but if you need someone right now, anytime, anywhere, that really doesn't exist, especially if you don't need or want to go to the emergency room or need to call 988. So that's how this all started out. I joined the company because when I met Alfred, this just resonated with me in a huge way, because I have had situations in my life. I was married for a bunch of years. I've got two twins. I got two kids, both boys, just entering college. And I can tell you that over the years, I've had the need myself for this kind of urgent care therapy. And in the medical world, urgent care is a big deal. It plays an important part in the traditional medical care continuum. In mental health, it doesn't exist. So we're literally creating an entirely new category of mental health delivery. And it's one that's just desperately needed by people out there, no matter where you live, no matter what, gender or socioeconomic or demographic, everyone has this need. And even if you have a therapist, right? If they're not available in the moment, like in the middle of the night, it's not like you have access 24/7. What are you going to do? There's nobody you can call or nobody you can reach out to. So ListenRing solves that problem, and we're working on a national rollout.
Oh, beautiful. So this is just did you already launch the product? Is it already open to the public? When did you guys actually go live?
We went live a couple of months ago in the state of Virginia. So we've been operating in Virginia for about 7 weeks right now. And we also launched, I think, last week in Washington, D.C. We're going to launch this week in Maryland, New York, Colorado, Washington State, Ohio, Florida are all on deck in the next, 45 days. And we're going to slowly grow. Well, not so slowly. We're going to grow right across the country, as fast as we can.
I love that. And David, let's dive into your specific part with ListenRing. What exactly are you handling throughout the process?
So I've been in the tech space for a long time. I've launched a handful of healthcare tech-based companies, all investor-backed, over the last almost 30 years. So when I met Alfred, I provided kind of that, aged experience, if you will, having done this a bunch of times. And so I'm in here as the chief operating officer of the company, but I'm providing a lot of guidance on everything from the go-to-market strategy to the marketing plan. I'm even leading the technology roadmap and a bunch of other aspects. Everything except maybe staffing, where Alfred and Mike are handling that, because they're both clinicians. And we curate our clinicians carefully to make sure that they meet the necessary qualifications of years of experience, types of experience, before they can get on our platform.
Yeah, because I'm assuming the urgency that your service is trying to support, right? When someone needs that immediate help, there has to be a different hand-holding process to that than someone that
Yeah.
is just going to a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of when you hear the word therapy? Everyone has kind of their own kind of definition of what they think of, right? And most people think of therapy as something that you go to once a week. It's a 45-minute session or a 50-minute session. There's a real defined thing about the word therapy. We use therapy differently. When you're in the moment, you're having a panic attack, you're a victim of PTSD, you're having massive anxiety, you've just, your loved one passed away, or you had a relationship issue and you're just spiraling or feeling out of control. These things don't happen on a schedule. No, it's not like you can time that out with your weekly therapist meeting, or if you don't have a therapist, good luck. So this is all about being able to provide a therapist who's qualified in crisis counseling, and we think of them as personal crises. Not if you're suicidal, because we're going to push someone like that out to 988 in their territory. But someone who's anything other than that, these people are going to spend their time. They're not trying to diagnose you. They're trying to help you talk through and walk through what you're feeling and what you're dealing with, and help you kind of address that issue in the moment, no matter what time of the day or night it is or where you are.
Oh, I love that. And really just being able to support, like you said, that hole in the market, that difference between the urgent care and say like the BetterHelp online therapist where they have a schedule. Exactly. This is immediate. This is support right when they need it. Now, let's talk a little bit. There's two things that I want to hit on that I think are going to be very valuable to our listeners here, which is the go-to-market strategy, as well as the development, especially for you as the CEO, of a 24/7 service, which I mean, as most people say, is very difficult to structure. Let's talk about the 24/7 service first. As a business, how do you structure that to always have a business that's live so they can support the customers whenever needed?
So the platform has a bunch of features for the therapist to use. And by the way, we call our therapists listeners. That's their title, because it's a combination of listening and helping someone talk it through, but listening is the critical kind of most important component when someone is in that moment, right? Making sure you can hear what they're saying and try to help them work through it. But we have tools on our site. So first of all, we have therapists in the states that we go into. We don't launch in a state until we reach critical mass of providers. So we make sure that there's enough providers in there to cover. They can set themselves up on our platform with their own schedules. But on the off chance that a caller comes onto the platform, and it's happened once or twice when there isn't a therapist or a listener available, they can just simply select, to have the system send out notification to every single therapist in the entire state. And the first one they all see it. They see this notification on their mobile device, or on their, it would be on their mobile device, comes as a text. And the first one that hops on can then help that patient. And this brings up another really differentiating point between us and almost all of the other providers of any type, of mental health providers online. And that is, we don't use any AI, zero. There's no matching. We're not like trying to figure out or have an algorithm that tries to match a caller with a therapist, because that's, to me, is just freaking dangerous, honestly. We want the person to basically select a therapist that they feel fits their circumstances at that time, their need. And if they're really struggling and they don't want to go through that very short process of looking at a couple of profiles and picking the right person, they can just select first available. And the very first available therapist that's on the system will just get the call. So they have choices about how they select the therapist that they want to work with, which is incredibly empowering, because different people have different needs. And if they call in more than once, they may be calling in for different reasons and want to work with a different type of therapist every time they call.
And it really takes the personal aspect into the business, because even if you don't select your therapist and just say the first available, it's gonna be the first person. I'm assuming in that text there's some type of context of what the person is dealing with. So that way, that mass text that goes out, the therapist that sees, oh, I can help this person, is the first one that hops on. So there's that interconnection of the therapist or the listener trying to connect with the patient because they know that they can help them, or the patient actually going after a specific listener because they know it fits their need. And it's a lot more personable than what we're seeing with AI. Very powerful, definitely unique,
The
right?
human connection here is critical for us. The technology is great, but it plays a role only up to a point. And this notion of AI in the mental health space, it's not there yet.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like AI is definitely a booming conversation. We're all using it. I know if you guys are a business owner, you're diving into it, but there's some things that it is pushing about the boundaries of what it actually can do and putting itself in a position where it thinks it's better than worse. Like I would hate to be able to reach out to a therapist and the first thing I get is an automated voice or even an AI voice. Like, how can I help you today? And to the side, like, are you okay? You know what I mean?
Right. It
Right.
reminds me of that movie, Her.
Yes, yeah, you know what I mean? There's definitely there's a space and a place for AI, but when something that's this personal, that's really
Yeah.
designed to be
It's great to
me.
help the therapist.
Yeah.
It's a tool to help therapists get access to information, to go through lots of information quickly, to help them serve that patient better or faster. That's great. But the notion of AI either matching someone to a therapist or, God forbid, delivering the actual care itself, I'm sorry, we're anti AI when it comes to that.
I love the idea, and I bet our listeners too, because people again in this position as entrepreneurs, the business owners listening to this right now, we go through ups and downs, volatility of our happiness and our stress and our anxiety skyrocketing. And I can tell, I just from the way you started this conversation, you feel the same thing that we all feel,
Yeah.
which is there is times in life that are harder than others, and we need support in those times. Not interested in having a weekly therapist, but there would be a good time here and there where I'm able to call someone to just be able to connect and be able to understand my positioning a little bit better through a therapist's eyes and be able to get support. Now, go ahead, David.
No, I was going to say, even if you had a therapist, let's say something hits you in the middle of the night. Actually, a better example hits you during the day, during business hours. You still can't reach out to that therapist because they're seeing patient. It's not their business model to be available to you when you need them. They're available to you when you have an appointment. And so even if you have a condition or a mental health challenge that you wish to get, talk through it every week or every couple of weeks, that's great. And it's certainly part of the care delivery continuum. But whether you have one or don't, when you need something in the moment, there's really nowhere to turn until ListenRing became.
ListenRing is not only powerful in the sense of the product that you've created, but also the unique selling proposition of that hole that you're filling, I think is a necessity and something that I think will be easily growing across the state. As you talk about a slow growth, I don't think you're going to have any type of slow growth. So let's dive into the growth a little. Would love to understand, once you've developed the product and then you've gone through each individual area that you're about to launch in, and you've vetted your listeners, your therapists, and you have a nice Rolodex of individuals in that area. What is the go-to-market strategy? How do you go into a market and try to push past the millions and millions of dollars that BetterHelp is advertising for, or is the knowledge base that this doesn't actually exist? A 24/7 service that's there for you at your time doesn't exist. How do you enter the market to get that message across?
Well, it is absolutely a challenge. There's a ton of noise out there. There are a lot of companies that are much better funded than we are and much larger than we are in terms of revenue and resources. But we go in with a long-term strategy. We're not looking to make a quick kill. We're going in, we're using, we're leveraging social media. We're trying to build our brand and we're pushing forth a very specific message about how we can help people under specific circumstances, which is this kind of urgent care, mental health need. So we use social media as part of it. We're just beginning to use some streaming advertising. We're going to be on Prime and Hulu and a few other ad-supported platforms here pretty soon. And we go into the specific markets where we're launching, and we do kind of all of these things at once. And then we also use digital marketing. We're probably also going to get into some more, old school types of marketing, everything from direct mail and other things. But I'll tell you one thing we do is we do a ton of testing. One of the things I've learned as an entrepreneur, and especially a startup entrepreneur, is you can spend a lot of money very, very fast and get very little for it if you aren't careful about how you target and test your messages and your channels. And so that is hugely important for every company that I get involved with, is to do that well and do the kind of research necessary so that when you finally do spend the big bucks, you're getting the return that you're looking for.
Business owners, entrepreneurs, rewind that, listen to that again, because that's a golden nugget and a half, right? The understanding that in the digital age that we live in, we have the capability now of running rapid tests with clarity to understand what works and what doesn't work is not only from platforms like TikTok, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, but also messaging, consumer profiling, creative development. All of these things are a massive factor of success or failure of your or your go-to-market strategy. And the beautiful thing about 2025 and beyond is that these platforms allow us to test rapidly at low spend to get true clarity on what works and what doesn't, and then be able to put, as you said, David, the ad dollars behind what actually works instead of putting something up there at mass spend that is an assumption of success or failure. It's literally what you just said is what I built my agency around. That's the concept of understanding how to improve 1% every single day is by understanding what works, what doesn't work, and moving in the direction of success every single day. I love that, David. When we've talked about a little bit now of kind of your USP, the ideal customer profile that you're going after, how unique your business is. I'm curious, do you see that this product that you have, ListenRing, is this something that's going to take over this market of that immediate help service? Or do you find that after COVID, the evolution, I say, of better health, and then as well as companies like you, ListenRing, coming into the market, what does the health and wellness market, especially in the mental health space, look like to you in the next, say, 12 to 18 months? And how's the evolution going, you being on the cutting edge of what's needed today?
Well, I hope it gets more accessible and more affordable. That's our goal. And I also hope that this notion of a stigma around getting mental health care goes away. We are very, very focused. Part of our mission to destigmatize getting mental health care. It's like any other illness. Sometimes it's just a cold, sometimes it's diabetes. It can be chronic, it can be a one off thing that lasts a few days or a few minutes in our case. In mental health space. It just depends. And why should it be treated or thought about any differently than any other medical condition? So we want people that have in the past thought about it as, oh my God, I'm getting therapy. I want to muscle through. I want to push through because I'm embarrassed to get therapy. We want that whole thought process to disappear. We want people to get help when they need it. They deserve it. No one should go through any of these things alone. Why would you do that? But when there's help available, people who care, who are compassionate, and who are trained to help you get through it and feel better about it, and then develop skills and tactics and tools to deal with it if it comes back. Because anxiety, listen, the anxiety level, the rate of anxiety disorder in this country has gone way up. Panic attacks have gone way up, and more things are getting diagnosed. That's what should have been diagnosed a long time ago because we're getting better at it. And there's plenty of clinicians out there. The notion there's a shortage of clinicians, I don't really believe that's true. I think that it's just finding the right connection between the clinicians and the platforms and the companies that offer services. And then there's an insurance component too, which we could spend all day talking about, where the reimbursements suck. So who the hell's going to take insurance? Why would you, right? So that creates a huge disconnect in the market too. But when it comes to urgent care, none of that's important. It's about getting help when you need it and not thinking that, oh, I just need to kind of, handle it on my own in the middle of the night and just sit there and dwell on it, which, by the way, usually makes it worse.
Hey, everybody, I hope you're enjoying the content. Just want to take a quick intermission to address the business owners watching this right now. I have been in the marketing industry for over a decade, and I have found that there is two major things that I am trying to help the world understand. One, there's a common denominator to success. Every successful business has the same foundational structure built out, and we'd love to be able to support understanding what that foundation is. And two, 90% of marketing agencies screw you over for one clear identifier, and that is data. Only 3% of consumers are ready to purchase today. The other 97% are being nurtured by your advertising dollars and advertising spend. We created Kaizen Marketing Agency to give you ownership of not only the customers that you're getting through your front door, but also the ownership of your data and understanding what actually grows your business and giving you the control to be able to grow it. My goal personally is to be one of the best marketers in the world. And the only way to do that is to help as many businesses as I possibly can actually grow their company. Not just sell Facebook ads or Google ads, but put a service together that gives you ownership and growth. So I hope you enjoy this content. If you're loving it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really want to know more about how to grow your company and you want a free audit and game plan, we'll hand you the keys to the kingdom on how to be successful. Click the link below. We'll do a 15-minute audit. First 10 minutes, we'll really break down your business. Last 5 minutes, we'll show you those common denominators that you need to be successful for your company and how to implement it into your business. What a beautiful message, David. Truly, truly. I mean, again, I think you guys not only have something unique, but you have something that's needed in the market. And it's becoming, as you said, a higher and higher need within the society, especially in the US, as our mental health seems to be fatiguing and getting worse and worse over the years. And there's a multitude of reasons of why that could happen. But at the end of the day, ListenRing is there to support you when the problem arises, which is extremely powerful statement.
Absolutely.
pivot a little bit to you, David, and understand you as a serial entrepreneur, as a COO, as someone that's done this for multiple businesses now, and then going through ListenRing and supporting them and their growth. Do you have maybe a story or a challenge or something that you've had in your entrepreneurial journey that you'd like to share with our listeners here today that was a learning lesson for you that made you look at a business a little bit differently?
So many. Where to begin? So when I was much younger, because I've been doing this for a while, I approached problems very differently. I made very quick decisions earlier in my career, not always with great information. I was a lot more type A than I am now, if you can imagine. And I've discovered that if you can kind of take a step back and pull yourself out of the weeds and slow down a bit, you can make much better decisions. You're never going to have perfect information. And you certainly don't want to get stuck in what I call analysis paralysis, right? Where you just can't make a decision because you don't think you have enough data. I mean, eventually you have to make these tough decisions. But slowing it down and making sure that you're using the data that you have, making evidence-based decisions, making sure that you're managing your money, especially in a startup, because cash is king in a startup. If you run out, you're screwed. You have a lot of problems. So that has been a huge help for me. And whenever I coach, other entrepreneurs, these are some of the things that I talk about. But it's also about lifestyle. When you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business and you're doing 80 to 100 hours a week, I always question, well, do you really need to do that? Is that really, the way to do it? Or can you work more efficiently and still have a little bit better life balance? And of course, when you're an entrepreneur, life balance is kind of an oxymoron, but there's ways to do it better and smarter. And so I always try to kind of talk people through what's driving them and what's motivating them and how they're spending their time and the workflow that they go through in their head to set their day up.
Two powerful, powerful things. The understanding the allocation. We had a last podcast I had really honed in on, like, if you do not appreciate your time away from work, you only will lead to burnout. You're not going to have success. To find balance, so what we call ikigai, to find balance between what you love, what makes you money, and what makes you healthy. Like, makes it so each one of those aspects just get promoted so much more because you're happy in life, right? And I know the feeling. I love working. I love what I do, but you give me 3 or 4 days at go until 2 a.m. And next thing you know, I'm a little bit grumpier. I'm a little bit more up meds. So I think all of us entrepreneurs definitely feel that. And then the first one you said, which is to slow down and think about it. It's so funny. Probably every one of our parents said, think before you speak. But the power in that, as we've gotten older, and especially in us as entrepreneurs who have been in very high intensity positionings that emotions run rampant in, right? And you get these flood of emotions. The biggest thing that I was taught throughout my life that helped me was the fact that your emotional input is going to happen about 127,000 times faster than your cognitive process. So everything that you think, there's a feeling behind that. And sometimes that feeling's not right. Sometimes you get angry at the guy because he doesn't know, you don't like what he said, but he might be right? So that's a very great piece of advice, of just being able to slow it down a little bit, realize that you don't have to make
You just made me think of something. We should be targeting entrepreneurs with ListenRing.
You should. You should. You definitely should. This is a product that, I mean, your general positioning, as I gone through your website, I looked at your color orientation, I kind of looked at your branding, definitely design direct to consumer, right? It's designed to be there for just the everyday user. But there's probably, if you made a pie graph of people that are stressed in this world, you're probably got a huge population of kids between the ages of 17 and 21 who are trying to figure out their life. And the next one's probably a big population of people trying to start a business, because we definitely go through it. I don't know if all of us will admit that we need a therapist and we're looking for help. A lot of us start us business because we all believe that we can do it ourselves. But there's 4 core factors to success, in my opinion. And that is hard work, organization, perfectionist, which is, just double checking your work and make sure you're doing your best. And then prudence, which, is defined as the ability to make the right decision. And a lot of times us as entrepreneurs make the wrong decision because our mentality or our mental positioning isn't where it's supposed to be at that moment. And I think something like ListenRing would be a great phone call to make before you make that $1 million investment, right? Yeah, I have to put you in the right mind.
I speak in high schools and middle schools all the time because I've been a volunteer with Junior Achievement since I turned 18. And we're going on, 50 years, or, well, not quite, 40 years of Junior Achievement volunteer. And I was in Junior Achievement as a high schooler myself in the program. I've been a volunteer with it ever since. And when I go into these schools, one of the things I talk about is everyone who plays sports hears their coach tell them, failure is not an option. You got to go out there and win. And I tell them that, well, that's only the first part of the phrase. Failure is not an option, it's required. In business, if you're not failing in small ways like all the time, you're not growing. You're not figuring it out. You're not maximizing the success of what you're doing. So, as an entrepreneur, sometimes these failures can feel devastating, especially if it's early on. And so, I saw a really kind of a meme chart recently. It's a zigzag thing that goes up like this. And it's like, we got the money. Oh, shit, I lost my biggest client. Oh, my God, we did really great today. And oh, no, something else happened. And you have this roller coaster going on, and that'll wear you out. I mean, that will just knock you on your butt if you don't manage the swings, and try to keep things, more level in the way you manage your emotions and the way you build your business.
Yeah, the hardest part is how do I hold on to understanding what was the good to replicate that so that when the negative times come, that it doesn't completely derail me from my success. Because no matter what, as you said, as entrepreneurs, we're going to have, it's very volatile, our success, right? It goes up and down and up and down. But that's only you're looking at moments or days, right? Very short timelines. It feels volatile. But the goal as an entrepreneur, as you said earlier, playing the long game. You play the long game,
Play the long game.
the graph goes from this to this, right? You get that bell-shaped curve over time as long as you're understanding the positives and why you got your successes and the negatives and how to be better and not do the same thing over and over again in a negative way.
Right. You mentioned direct to consumer when you're looking at our website, and that is the way the website is focused at the moment. But I want to let you know that on deck is a business to business offering. So, very shortly, we're going to be offering a platform extension for corporations, organizations, nonprofits, government, whatever, to add ListenRing as an employee benefit. So they can give it to their employees either on a, where the company or the organization pays for it, or on a kind of a discounted access for the employees themselves. Because one of the things that we all know is mental health in the marketplace these days has become a big problem. Everything from quiet quitting to all kinds of, people with kids who are having challenges and trying to manage their personal lives. And oftentimes during the day, someone's at work and they just are very unproductive because they're so distracted or so tired or so emotionally drained from everything else that's going on in their life, that being able to offer this as opposed to the traditional kind of EAP service, which is basically the traditional therapy. Yeah, we'll give you a therapy benefit. You can use it if you want. But that's not what this is. This would be the ability for that employee to hop onto a 10 or 15-minute conversation with the therapist, work through whatever they're working through, and that's going to help them be more productive on the job and more focused on the job.
Love to see the change in retention from implementing something like that in a corporate office, right? Where you have 200, 300 base employees on a minimum and the retention rate, because that's the biggest thing, as you said, David. Yes, it's a lack of work and sometimes they're volatile in how much they're putting out there. But the biggest problem is that it costs so much money to hire a new employee. And most businesses, if you're large enough, you know the cost, the detriment that happens to the business and the loss of a successful employee, and then the cost to bring that next employee up, and then the gamble of are they going to stay? Are they going to be there? So yeah, retention rates would be huge in the support of that.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse, losing an employee or having one that stays there, but that isn't very productive or focused because they're so distracted or burnt out from whatever's going on in their lives outside of work. And sometimes it's the work itself that can get stressful. So having a way to kind of release that pressure valve, in a short conversation that isn't a 50-minute therapy session that costs, $150, is a better solution than, a traditional EAP service.
That's a great transition, David. If people are listening to this right now, they're either in the corporate space and they, man, I'm excited for that product. I'd love to share more information, or they're an individual consumer that is looking for more information. How do people find out more information about ListenRing?
So listenring.com is available. If you have an Apple phone, you can just go to the Apple Store and download it. We'll be launching an Android app probably by the end of the year, but we have a web app. So no matter where you are, you can just open up any phone and use the phone's browser to access the platform or through the mobile app.
Perfect.
And of course, follow us on all the platforms. ListenRing is on every Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're on it.
Love it. And that information is going to be found below in the show notes. So if you guys are looking for it, you can find it right there. David, I have one final question for you. This is more of a personal question for you, especially for the animation, the charisma, and everything that you've showed on this podcast so far. How do you find your Kaizen? What do you do as an individual to ensure that you are finding a way? For those listeners that haven't heard the term before, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1% improvement every day, or taking small steps towards a larger goal. How do you, David, in your own personal life, make sure that you're constantly striving towards that larger goal, that you have the energy, you have the motivation, you have the drive to continue to improve yourself every single day?
Sleep.
Yeah.
I swear to God, sleep, sleep and exercise, but also that personality shift that I told you about earlier, that I mentioned earlier. That really honestly helped me just unleash a whole bunch of better decision making, better energy. And that couched with the sleep and the exercise has kept me going because I'm in my 60s now. So, all of those things kind of start to make a difference if you can do all of them and do them well, you keep going. I have no plans to stop ever.
I love it, and great advice. I mean, it's funny we laugh at it, sleep, but it's such a vital part about your truly, yeah, your peace of mind, your intellectual positioning, your health across the board. It's so important.
I'm wearing the ring. I'm using the app. I've got the watch. There's everything I can possibly do. I'm doing.
I love it. David Crane from ListenRing. Thank you so much for the time. You were awesome. For the list, you'll find his information below in the description. And if you finish the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next Kaizen podcast.